Hey, we're back. We're going to be looking at Linde. This is the last of our value stocks that we're going to follow up on before moving on to a different category. But last time we checked on them, they were trading at 341, and this was back on the 11th. So we'll get into some news of what they've been up to between that time, and then after the news, we'll go into a technical analysis aspect of this. And of course, you can share your comments down below. Uh, but overall, you can tell this is the monthly chart that's on the screen right now. So they did have a slight dip and then they bounced back. So let's just dig into this company a little more. So this one's new, and so I'm pretty sure the last video I said I would look into them a little bit further, just to get an understanding of what they do. And so this kind of summarizes it in a very succinct way. They are in the chemical specialty industry. At least that's how this company, Zax, has formulated them. I believe I would consider them just in the energy sector, but to get into a more granular uh, niche in the market, it would be the chemical specialty. And so what they do is they have applications for the industrial gases. Linde is making the world more productive by the day. The company's primary products include industrial gases, including oxygen, which is used as life support in hospitals. Its processed gas, like hydrogen, is being utilized for clean fuels, while its high purity and specialty gases are employed to manufacture electronics. So we have a lot of different sectors here. You know, the health sector is being impacted by them. You also have the fuel crisis, we could maybe call it, how we're starting to see a shift into electric vehicles, and Linde is taking an alternative approach, not necessarily electronic, but hydrogen, and that is another potential solution for the clean fuels. So pretty positive there. And then it looks like they also do some electronic aspects. It's the way it's listed, I have to imagine that's the smallest sector. As we follow this company over time, we'll get more in depth with that. They also have long-term contracts on site with customers backed by a minimum purchase order, so that's going to provide some stable cash flows. And also, this is kind of old based on the little bit of research I did, but they had a merger with another gas company called Praxair, and Linde purchased them back in, I want to say, 2018. The next I'll show you in a minute. Um, but yeah, actually, I'll just show you now. So that pretty much summarizes Linde for now. And so Praxair, it looks like, again, they were in the industrial gases. They were founded over 100 years ago. They were the largest industrial gases company in the North and South America, so very big. And you can even see their revenue insights here. They're a little bit dated, at least back in 2017 was the last time this was updated. This was a big company, so this shows how large Linde is. And if we go back, market cap 176 billion. We can even bring up their financials. I have to imagine they're pretty good. So $33 billion per year, and so they use that money to buy Praxair, adding, at this point it's incorporated, but that added about a third of their revenue right there. Um, it looks like the purchase was made in 2018, and that Praxair name was discontinued in 2020, but they made the purchase in 2018. So a few years that they've really incorporated this company with them. Uh, some other news: Linde was recognized for the sixth year in as a leader for gender equality. It looks like they had this goal to um, make 30 by 30, meaning they wanted 30% of their corporation to be female representation. And they're currently, I think it said like 28. Oh, yeah, right here. Currently, is at 28%. So they're on pace to reach that goal, which is a positive thing. The next thing we have is they're starting up to supply the world's first hydrogen ferry. So this is very interesting. Uh, on top of them supplying this first hydrogen powered ferry, which is in Norway, their aim, it mentions somewhere in here that their aim is to target long-term travel, and that's kind of the sector that they're going to focus on. And I have to imagine if that goes well, that'll trickle down to a more like individual consumer. And so I believe I'm just looking for the exact paragraph, but um, yeah, so right here, hydrogen is beginning to decarbonize mobility around the world, primarily for long haul transportation like trains and trucks. So that is one aspect of this hydrogen. It looks like they're going after ferry, so that could mean ships are in the making for them too. And again, this all goes back to they're trying to decarbonize the world. So the fossil fuels, this is an alternative to that. And I think that's going to be very good because I have to imagine sticking with this topic that, um, I mean, the bad side of this, I have to imagine because it's a new technology, it probably is costly. So, whatever primary fuels a lot of companies are using, such as fossil fuels, I have to imagine if, for example, those fossil fuels cost a company maybe $600,000 a year, just throwing out numbers, maybe this hydrogen costs $800,000 to incorporate that. So it'd be a charge, an additional expense of $200,000 in this hypothetical example here. But the reason why I think companies will begin to adapt is because it's just becoming so eco-friendly to go after these type of new decarbonizing type efforts. And I think on top of that, what we'll see in the coming years is the government of various countries, if not across the world, will start to incorporate sanctions on companies that don't include this type of transition into a decarbonizing their fuel sources. So I think that's why I have high expectations for this. I think it's going to build slow, but probably in say 5-10 years, when government says, "Hey, you need to switch to this, or you're going to get hit with a fine," and so that would mean, that fine. I have to imagine it's going to be 5 to 10 times more, whatever the cost is, to transition into a cleaner fuel system. So in that scenario that I painted, a possible sanction could be like $1 million. So the company basically had a choice that year that they could switch to their old fuel to the new fuel, take that extra $200,000 expense, and then be able to say, hey, we have clean fuel, compared to the government says, oh, you want to keep your old fuel? Well, here, we're going to give you $1 million fine on top of that. So it's just going to, they're more or less going to force the industry into these cleaner products, hydrogen being one of them. I think Linde has a great chance to gain from that market. Considering how large they are, I'm sure they have a significant portion of that market. The last thing is, this is a big deal. So Linde signs an agreement with ExxonMobil to carbon dioxide for a carbon dioxide offtake. Weird how they say it, but basically the summary here is, under the terms, ExxonMobil will transport and permanently store up to 2.2 million metric tons of carbon dioxide each year from Linde's hydrogen production facility, and that's the equivalent to the emissions of nearly 500,000 cars per year. They kind of word it weirdly, in my opinion, but I think basically the point is ExxonMobil has tons of carbon dioxide that they produce each year due to their way of just transporting fuel or mining the fuel, and they've reached a deal with Linde that they're going to be able to take away that carbon footprint of 2.2 million metric tons of carbon dioxide per year. Doesn't say how long the contract is, but have to imagine it's going to be ongoing. Linde's new. They also are setting up shop in expected 2025 in that Gulf Coast region. So they'll have a plant nearby. That it all seems to be lining up. It makes sense that they would want to try to have their factory next to one of their customers. So that makes sense, line it up like that. But that pretty much covers the news aspect. If we go to the technical analysis chart, I didn't make any changes to this yet, but I just want to update my little graph here or my little spreadsheet off on the side, and I'll share that with you in just a minute. But currently they're trading at 356. For me, a buy point for this, I'm gonna keep that green line in there just for reference, but I'm gonna add a new one in here because clearly this company's been in an uptrend. That's what these purple lines are. This company's been in an uptrend for what did I do over here? They've been in an uptrend for just years. I'm going to scale this back as much as I can. Let's make this tiny. Yeah, they've been in an uptrend since 2016. You can see they had very good growth from 2016 up to about 2020. Then everyone got hit. Here's that COVID recession thing. And then all of a sudden they just took off like a rocket, accelerating growth. And then if we zoom back in to more present times, it looks like they had, let me space this out a little bit. You can see they did have a dip like most other stocks that we followed, but then they bounced right back. And so I'm still keeping that uptrend in lock because even though like back here, they were above that trend line, if we scale back, I mean, it just was trading a little bit rich, and that makes sense that it would pull back. It looks like it overcorrected in the more recent times, about third, fourth quarter 2022, and now it's kind of restabilized, getting back into that upward trend. Again, we just drew in that green line. If this one continues to go upwards, that green line's not going to mean anything, but I did point it out here only because really it looks like it hit a new bottom here. You could say that it acted as resistance a number of times. Other than that, nothing really special about this line. I could have drew it in up here. That it seemed to have a little bit of resistance back here, acted as support, a little bit resistance here. Anywhere I drew that line in, there's a case. Anywhere between like 320, 330. I guess for now, I'll just mark it at 330. This red line we drew in there only because it seemed to have resistance back in December of 22 and also in January of 22. But considering that uptrend is continuing, we're just going to take that out. That'll make this part easy. I'm just going to say there's no sell/resistance point because that uptrend is in such a good lock at this point. For me to consider buying this, I'm going to update that to 330 would be great. But sticking with the uptrend, if this one were to pull back before the end of the week to say about 334, if we project ahead, I've done this for another stock that's in an uptrend like this, where I just draw in a vertical line, which I'm not, oh, here it is. And we'll make that line yellow or orange. I just want to make sure it's the thick one. So if we, and I'm just using this so I can see a more precise intersection. So I imagine I'm hoping to circle back on this one in about 2 weeks. So what I'm going to do is draw this out 3 weeks from now. And the other point of interest would be about 337. So not that big of a range, not as big as I kind of thought it was going to be. But again, the goal is to try to grab it at a dip point. And right now, because it seems to be in that uptrend, if it touches this lower purple line, that would be a time for me to buy. And this black line, I'm just going to remove that also for now. So yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. I'm going to share my spreadsheet with you in just a second. Decade long uptrend. But let me just update the date also. But yeah, this pretty much summarizes it. So we have Linde up here at the top. They're in that decade-long uptrend, currently at 356. I'd be interested in buying it in like the 330's. Probably gonna set an alert on the Webull app. If you don't have Webull, I recommend it for a number of reasons. It's just nice to track it. They have a nice spreadsheet function like what you were seeing, and they do have alerts, and so that'll make it easier to kind of track these where I don't need to be watching them all the time. I'll just get a notification if it gets in that range. So I might set an alert for this one at like 340, and that'll let me know, okay, let's check back in an hour or something, see if it drops a little lower. And yeah, I just wanted to share that with you. So that pretty much wraps this up. If you have any thoughts or comments on this one, by all means, share it down below. Otherwise, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.